This is 7 News High School Red Zone Review Preview.
Welcome aboard. You join us on both WSPA.com and WSPA Plus. We're looking back at week number 12, getting ready for week number 13. It's the second week of the playoffs in the high school red zone. Really no surprises of note last week. There were a few games between comparable seeds, teams with comparable records as well, that were close, were decided late, as we expected. For the most part, things played out and, as they say, held chalk in the opening round in just about all the brackets. Now, among the games last Friday night in the high school red zone, you had a battle in 5A Division II. Hillcrest and Riverside, first time those rivals in Greenville County got together since 2021. Jackson Free usually makes things happen for Bennett Swigert and the Rams offense. 51-yard touchdown to give his team a 7-0 lead middle of the first quarter. Early in the second quarter, Warriors answered. Keon Knowles off the left side, 4-yard touchdown. 7-all game, but Free and Nijay Harris get together on a 49-yarder. 14-7 game late first half. Just before the break, under 15 seconds left, J.K. Stroud on the receiving end, a 21-7 lead. Check out that play. Just a heave out to the wide receiver by Free in the third quarter. Logan Moore does a great job. Breaks away from one, lowers his shoulder on another, gets to the end zone for the touchdown, turned into a 50-yard play. And Hillcrest moved on to the next round, eliminating Riverside, and the Rams get an 8th win with the triumph, 35-14.
That's a big deal, and we can go back and learn from this, right? We can go back and demonstrate and show, look, this is where we're too emotional. This is where we weren't really playing football. A win's a win, especially this time of year, and we are just so excited to be back at practice next week.
So they've been working this week after beating Riverside for a 12th consecutive time. It's off to Indian Land over in Lancaster County, just below Charlotte, for the Rams coming up on Friday night. Meanwhile, another battle in 5A Division II. There is one Jake Bentley returning to the Upstate. First season guiding nation forward. You probably know about his past as a USC quarterback, and his dad built Burns into a power. Well, Greenville Red Raiders had something for the visiting Falcons. Keyshawn Farrow in for the touchdown late in the first quarter, midway through the first quarter. 7-0 lead for the Red Raiders. Then Franklin Whitley, the big Florida State commit, with a deflection. Julian Renrick making the grab, the interception. It sets up Farrow to trip Bryant for the touchdown, and Greenville moved on to its 7th win of the year. They had suffered a heartbreaking loss to Hanna late in the regular season. Now they'll get their chance for revenge coming up Friday night. They go down to Anderson, take on TL Hanna at a 5A Division II playoff rematch, coming off a 7-point win against Jake Bentley and Nation Forward. Meanwhile, Eastside and Gaffney, teams that met during the regular season, and the Tribe won by just 5 in Taylor's against Eastside, while the Eagles visited Zion Dawkins' house. 85 yards on the opening kickoff. It set a tone, and Gaffney moving on to the victory as Eastside losing 7 of 8 against region foes in Region 2 5A. That was a matchup against one of their region foes, but they were within a couple of scores pretty much. In each of those games, they fell 28-10 last week. Man in Spartanburg in 5A Division I had a question mark around it going in. Would Trenton Lynch, the fine running back, be able to return to action after missing some late regular season games due to injury? And he was back, and he was just fine. Rushes for 124 yards, just a handful of carries. That touchdown made it 21-3 against a one-win JL man squad in the second quarter. In the third quarter, Lynch, another touchdown, and Spartanburg cruised on to the win. Lynch now up around 1,200 yards on the season. They're happy to have him back as they move on with a 45-3 win and get ready for a trip to Columbia, taking on Ridgeview coming up on Friday night. Boiling Springs and Malden had a rematch from the regular season. Mavericks beat them 21-14. They had them back at Freeman Field, the first home playoff game at Malden since 1999, and some good defense. Evan Hrushka stopping Emery Logan. That led to an Alan Labra field goal. And in the second quarter, it was 6-0 Boiling Springs. Check out Reddick Langston trying to get extra yards after escaping the backfield, and bam! Wow. 3 different Bulldogs. He laid flat for a moment like he was knocked out. He was fine. He had to set out a play. He returned to action. And then they run a little end around to Maury Shepard, able to hook up with Michael McClintock on the touchdown. Malden had a 7-6 lead at the break, but TJ Collins and Boiling Springs able to rally for the 16-14 win. Some good defense, a late score. Malden avenging the regular season defeat. They're 5-6. They've got mighty Dutch Fork, a trip down there coming up Friday. In 4A, Emerald and Fountain Inn just a few weeks back in a Region 1 4A game played a tight battle in the Lakelands, and Fountain Inn prevailed by 4 points. Well, Chris Dean and Emerald, well, they were trying to get back at them for that. That touchdown made it a 24-21 Emerald lead in the opening half. Dean later gives his team a 10-point lead. Third quarter, Sam Holliday to Chance McClure. They connect, makes it a 3-point game, 31-28 as McClure, big part of the story all year long for the Fountain Inn offense. But Bo Height and Dean get together for the touchdown. Emerald moves on. Big win for Tad DeBose's program, 44-36.
We've lost a lot of close football games, and and through that, what don't kill you makes you stronger. And we showed a little bit of that strength tonight, pushing back some adversity and fighting through. They came out and jumped on us early, but we didn't blink, and our kids just battled all the way through it.
Well, they're going to have to get stronger with what's up next. Trip to mighty South Point in the next round. Elsewhere in the 4A Upper State, Daniel at 9-1, Dreher at 2-7. You'd have thought this would be a blowout. Turns into a close ball game. Third quarter, Kingston Bibb, just a freshman, goes for about 30 yards. Manny Major with Daniel trailing now in the fourth quarter, 10-7, gets it close, and eventually Jace Gross to Trey Wembley. That proves to be the winner in a 14-10 victory for Daniel, which survives at home. They'll get a visit from Camden in the next round on Friday night in the high school red zone. 14-10 the final. Pickens and Westside going at it. This one had the look of a lopsided ball game, and it turns out to be just that, as Westside was going for an 8th straight win, and 13 out of 14 wins already in their pocket since 1990. Bear Woods and Jai White got together for the early lead. Show you the final as Westside moved on. Now they'll host Wren, which they beat just a few weeks ago on the road to claim the Region 1 4A crown. Now they've got the Hurricanes at their place. Speaking of Wren, they were home against the Blue Ridge team that had secured its first winning season since 2014, going for a 7th win, but Jacob Owings and the Wren offense too much. Carson Bryant on that 20-yard score. Wren gets a 8th win on the year, and now they'll try to get their revenge at Westside with a 42-28 win last Friday. And Seneca was home against Lancaster. And after an early score by the visiting Bruins, Gavin Toma hooks up with Jerb Hunter. What a potent offense David Crane's team have. Toma well over 2,000 yards passing. They've got a Maury Werner who's closing in a 2,000-yard rushing season. Jack Webb right there setting up another score, and Seneca moved on. They'll get a visit from AC Flora from Columbia coming up Friday night in the 4A Upper State after winning by just 7 against Lancaster. That was some of the action from last week. We'll have some more for you a little bit later on in the show, but let's do a roundtable. Todd Summers, Mariah Ross, and I talking about some recent observations and a huge showdown that is upcoming in the Lakelands between Gaffney and Greenwood. Todd, let's start out looking ahead to a classic battle. Gaffney and Greenwood, two of the blue blood high school football programs we have in the state. They're getting ready to go at it in the Lakelands.
You say blue bloods. Well, we have exactly that. 31 combined state championships. Gaffney has 18. Greenwood has 13. These are programs and communities that care deeply about football. It's kind of a shame, to be honest with you, that we got this game in the second round of the playoffs, because this could easily be an upper state championship game or maybe even a round 3 game. But these teams have played a bunch historically. However, they have not played since 2019, and that was a regular season game. Coming into this contest, you got Greenwood quarterback Tristan Lewis, who is certainly one of the best players in the upstate. He is a Shrine Bowl quarterback. He's big, he's physical, and he's tough. He is going to lead Greenwood to wherever they can go. It's going to be on the back of Tristan Lewis. And you turn the page over to Gaffney, and they've got a quarterback, Banks Bowden, who is a little bit smaller than Tristan Lewis. Not a lot, but a little bit. But they're similar in that they both can run, they both can throw. And one other interesting note that I found out when talking to each head coach on Monday is the fact that they actually played in a scrimmage in mid-August. Of course, back then, Gaffney had a different quarterback, and both coaches said you can get a little bit from that scrimmage way back in August, but they're both different football teams and better football teams right now.
Yeah, it's a really good point. So that's 5A Division II and 5A Division I. Spartanburg is among the teams that'll have to travel. They're going down to Ridgeview. So, Mariah, you have seen Spartanburg this year with Trenton Lynch, their great running back, available. You've seen them when he hasn't been available. So what kind of X factor is he returned to action in their playoff win against Man last week and ran for about 125 yards?
Yeah, I mean, Trenton Lynch really is the engine that makes that Spartanburg offense go. He's a dynamic player that you know when he's on the field and making plays for his team, and you know when he's not on the field and not in the game making that kind of impact. Like you said, almost 125 yards last week, and that was on 4 carries. He had 2 touchdowns, so just an absolutely dynamic player for them. They ended up going 1-1 when he was not on the field, obviously kind of a blowout loss to Burns, and it wasn't for a lack of trying. They had the carries, they had the yards, but just not able to get into the end zone. And versus Riverside the next week, a little bit of a back and forth game. It went down to the wire, and so looking at both of those games and looking at the game last week, you definitely want to have a player like Trenton Lynch on your team.
Boiling Springs and Malden really got at it, and Boiling Springs, by edging out the Mavericks 16-14, they get an all expenses paid trip down to the Midlands to take on Dutch Fork. So that'll be one of the games in 5A Division I. Todd, you've got a situation where Hillcrest, team you covered last week, they've got to travel all the way over to Lancaster County, take on Indian Land. Their quarterback, Jackson Free, just fascinates me because he's a junior who just kind of plays like he should maybe have a surfboard in the back of the car, if you know what I mean.
Well, we're talking about Tristan Lewis being a big physical quarterback. Jackson Free is much smaller. I think he weighs about 165 pounds, but he just makes things happen. He's not the biggest quarterback. You watch his mechanics, and he's not as clean as probably you would like. He throws off of 1 foot. He's rolling out to the right or rolling out to the left, but you can see how impactful he is. On that first drive, Hillcrest against Riverside, he takes off and goes 50-plus yards for a touchdown. 5 different Rams scored touchdowns in that game. Interestingly, I was talking with Coach Swigert last week, and he said they've had 10 different players score a receiving touchdown this season. So yeah, it all goes through Jackson Free. He spreads it around to a lot of different guys. He has over 2,300 yards passing this year, 25 touchdowns, just 7 interceptions, but no question, Hillcrest has their hands full as they go on the road to face 3-seed Indian Land this Friday night.
And last name Free, he is a free spirit, at least when he's between the white lines on the field. That's what I've observed. And Mariah, you've seen Clinton a number of times this year. Second round playoff game in the 2A Upper State against Saluda. So what about this team? Do you think they've got a title run in them?
Yeah, I mean, I think going into the season, a lot of us questioned how they would look losing quarterback Sean Richardson. He was such a big part of that run game, but the run game obviously has had no issues this season. We've talked a lot about Javen Cook and the fact that he leads that team with over 140 rushing yards per game, 31 total touchdowns, but it's really the entire rushing offense backed by that big offensive line. They have over 3,600 total rushing yards this season and a little over 650 passing yards. And so everybody knows what they're going to do. They're just not able to stop them at this point. Defensively, they've allowed around 18 points per game. Could do a little bit more in terms of getting to the quarterback, creating turnovers, but they've been pretty successful there so far. I think the biggest question for them is how they're going to control those penalties. When you're on defense, you want to get off the field quickly. And when you're on offense, you don't want long yardage situations, 2nd and long, 3rd and long. We've seen them in those positions a lot. So the real question is going to be whether or not they can clean those up. But if they do, they definitely have a shot at getting back and making a title run.
Well, coming up, we're going to talk more Gaffney, Greenwood, all those championships. A couple of teams that have earned them and want some more, getting ready to play to see who advances this year. That's just ahead on the Review Preview. 1A Upper State, could Abbeville and Ware Shoals be on a collision course to meet again? Panthers yet again another playoff game at home. They were going for their 20th postseason win this decade when they took down Great Falls last Friday with Collins Brown scoring and then Madarius Burton. Another dominant win for the Panthers, a 9th on the season. They move on to get a visit from Louisville coming up Friday night in the high school red zone. Just up the road at Ware Shoals, the only team they lost to this year was Abbeville. Well, they were looking to get another winning streak going in postseason play. Jaden Johnson and Charles Callahan. It's a touchdown for Ware Shoals, and they pull away from Ridge Spring Monetta as Ware Shoals moves on with a shutout win. Another shutout for a really good defense. They allow only about 15 points a game. They're moving on to take on Hunter Kynard-Tyler coming up on Friday night. Welcome back into the review preview. So as we look ahead to week number 13, more on that game coming up in Greenwood at Babb Stadium. Eagles try to advance past Gaffney after having a bye last week. Indians got a win against Eastside, and Todd Summers with more.
Way back in mid-August, Gaffney traveled to Greenwood for a scrimmage, and initial evaluations were made.
I remember that day they were extremely physical. But you don't want to take too much out of that scrimmage.
Going back and looking at that, I don't know how much the schematics of it mattered, but the personnel part of it definitely matters.
You're talking about 10, 11 days in the football versus 12 weeks in the football. So we're both two different teams.
3 months ago, the result didn't matter as much as the competition to prepare for the season ahead. Fast forward to week 2 of the playoffs, and the result is all that matters as these tradition-rich programs try to get one step closer to Columbia.
It means a tremendous amount. I was at church and I had 4 people come up to me and ask me about the game. Right, we're going to be prepared, the game plan, how we looking.
These are 2 historic programs and have a chance to play again where all the chips are on the table.
Playoffs, Gaffney football, yeah, they step it up every year. It's been like that all the time, you know. My grandfather played up here.
If you're from Gaffney, you're born and bred for times like this.
Last Friday night, while Greenwood earned a bye in the opening round of the 5A Division II playoffs, Gaffney beat Riverside 28-10. So the age-old question, what's better, being rested or playoff tested?
I do think it's some advantages. I do think there's some disadvantages into not playing, especially when you're playing, you were playing at a really high level at the end of the year.
I think it's an advantage for us being able to study on them more.
I just think we got the advantage because we weren't really banged up, so we didn't need a rest week for our team and for our personnel, so I like playing.
They rested and all that, but coming off a win, we bringing momentum to Greenwood.
And they hope that momentum is on their side and they can move on in 5A Division II. Let's check out some other action from last week in week number 12. In 3A, had a feeling a battle between 2 5-5 teams. Pendleton and Broome would be a good one, and it was. Braden Simpson in for the injured Jamison Derryberry in the third quarter with Pendleton up by a point, 14-13. Gets the TD, 2-point conversion made it 21-14. Later in the fourth quarter, Deshaun Jenkins with a Pendleton touchdown ties it, and then Jackson Allman to Ty Miller. Huge gain, sets up a Brady Sprayberry game-winning field goal in the closing seconds, and Pendleton pulls it out on the road. Sprayberry the hero in the 24-21 win.
We talked about it all week, right? I really thought the game was going to come down to who really wanted to play next week. We're both 5-5. Who can sustain it and try to play in round 2? Offense, defensive touchdown, special teams, field goal to win the game. I mean, everybody contributed and all parts of it helped us win the game.
Now Pendleton faces county rival Powdersville, who they lost to earlier in the season. Carolina and Powdersville, speaking of the Devils, well, Carolina trying for a playoff win for the first time since 2011. A rematch for them didn't go well from the start. Xavier Huggins, coast to coast, a 90-yarder. And Huggins sets the tone. Powdersville moves on to a 9th win on the year as they pulled away with a shutout, 66-0. BHP trying to make it 18 in a row and 30 out of 31 against the Palmetto team that they had beaten in September, 49-0. It went, you might have guessed, Noah Thomas to MJ Earl and Belton Honeypath. Only unbeaten in the area with a 56-7 win. They're 11-0, getting ready now for a visit from Southside Christian. Speaking of the Sabres, they were trying to advance past Chapman, get a 6th win on the year after that rough start. They started 1-5, and Max Bright, the freshman, to Aaron Gilliam, made it 35-0 third quarter. Southside Christian, really nice turnaround the season under their first-year head coach Jonathan Guest. Now they've got a tough trip ahead. Got to go see the Bears down in Belton after the 55-15 win against Chapman, which closes the season 1-10. MVP was actually the home team playing at St. Joe's. The way the seeding works out, MVP higher and delivering some might. Jamar Brown with a big hit on Sam Patterson, but MVP doesn't have a stadium. That's why they had to play the game on the Knights' home field. Dylan McKee some hard yards, and then Mac Anderson and McKee was 13-0, but St. Joe's, as they are like to do, playing everybody tough, made it a game. MVP survives, 9th win on the year by a point, 28-27. They get Crescent next, down in Iva, a team they beat earlier this season. The Tigers were taking care of Union County. Turns out it was Quinton Isom's final game as the Union County head coach during the past week. He stepped down after a couple of seasons. Mason Evans and a Miriacker on that 53-yard play, part of a blowout win. Crescent gets to 8-3. 8 wins on the year for the first time since 2016, 52-14. Woodruff at home against West Oak. Had a feeling this one would go in a certain direction, and that it does. Connor Davis to Dre Jenkins for the early score. And the Wolverines sending West Oak to an 0-12 record all time in the playoffs, 49-7. Christchurch was trying to move on, get a chance to go play at Woodruff. And Quinn Hatfield's team getting good work out of Ant Atkins. This interception of Caleb Johnson set up what would have been a touchdown. Christchurch was actually stopped at the 1-yard line. Atkins later with a punt return that set up a Michael Martin score, and Christchurch goes to Woodruff coming up in week number 13 in the high school red zone. In the 2A ranks, the reigning champion Clinton Red Devils taking care of visiting North Central. And Jaden Glenn hooking up with wide receiver Sapphire Tribble that set up a touchdown. Clinton improves to 8-3. They advanced on. So did the other Red Devils in 2A in our area, Liberty, with wins last week. Coming up, we'll close out this edition of the Review Preview with our plays of the week. They're smashing. Stay tuned. Welcome back. We close out another edition of the Review Preview, saying goodbye to week number 12 and getting ready for week number 13, round 2 of the playoffs. But A final nod to week number 12 with our plays of the week, and play number 5 coming from the Walhalla game against Christ Church. Caleb Johnson, the interception. Ant Atkins, beautiful high point of the ball and a nice return. If it looks like he's running through a gloaming, that's because the smoke had still not cleared from when Christ Church comes running out. But Atkins got clear of defenders on the offense. Almost took it all the way in for play number 5. Play number 4 from the Hillcrest win against Riverside. Jackson Free with pressure coming says, here. And look at what Logan Moore does. Nice catch. Grabbed there, sheds him, lowers his shoulder. Another guy turns into a 50-yard score. Free with the, well, let's say somewhat fortunate toss in the air to a man who was open, and Moore does the rest for play number 4. Play number 3, Reddick Langston gets the Tough Guy Award. Had a very solid season playing quarterback for Malden. Known for his running, but can he take a hit? He proved it right there. Might have had the wind knocked out of him. He actually continued on in the game after sitting out of play. But Langston takes a pop for play number 3. Play number 2, Ren's Jacob Owings and Carson Bryant. They've been an impressive combination all year long. Bryant lays out on a 60-yard grab. Check out that catch by Bryant. Big gain, beautiful play, making a big-time reach for play number 2. And play number 1, Riverside followed its ball game against Hillcrest. Chris Briggs catching the interception with his fingertips. What a play as he picks off Gideon Murrib. Great play by Briggs, part of a really good Hillcrest defense, not giving up on the play and reeling it in for play number 1. Join us on television Friday night, 11 o'clock, Channel 7, 11:35 on the CW62, week number 13, coming your way in the high school red zone. We hope to see you then. We thank you so much for joining us on the program tonight. Have a great weekend. And for now, Pete Yanity saying so long.